All right, listen up. If you're getting into real estate or if you've been in it for a minute, you've been lied to about cap rates. Every broker, every shiny listing package, every overpriced deal, they all wave a cap rate in your face like it's some magic number. It's not. And if you're asking what cap rate should I buy at, you're asking the wrong damn question. Let's get into this, guys. Cap rates are only a headline. They're not the truth behind the story. A cap rate means nothing without context. A 7%, 8% cap rate on paper, as a broker might say, cool story, dude. But if the expenses are fake, then it means nothing. If maintenance is deferred, the income is inflated, the 7%, that 8% cap rate is a total joke. Guys, C class assets, especially in C class neighborhoods, do not operate at 25 to 30% expense ratios like some brokers like to pretend. In reality, it's more like 45 to 50% easily, or even a bit more. So you got to be careful. So if a broker is saying, hey, what cap rate do you want to trade at? And you're like, well, 8%. I mean, they might laugh at you like I got laughed at in 2019 because nothing was trading at 8%. But I hate that question. I think it's so ambiguous. I think it's so subjective when somebody's like, what cap rate do you want to trade at? And I said, I don't know. I mean, I've bought at a 3 cap based on operating income, based on actuals. I've bought on a 3 cap. Okay. And that deal made sense. It's important to note what expenses brokers are putting into their pro forma, are putting into their marketing package, are saying that the property is currently operating at. If a broker comes up to you and says, this property is selling at an 8 cap or an 8% cap rate, and you're like, whoa, that's sick. That means I'm gonna get a great deal on this. And then you take a look at what expenses they're presenting, meaning like let's say they have $100,000 in income for the year and $25,000 in expenses. That is messed up. It's not factual. It's not the way a property is actually going to operate. Maybe an A class property in the right neighborhood that doesn't need any work at all, and maybe you're self managing it. That's a slight possibility. But if you're looking at B and C class properties, or even D, and you're looking at hiring a third party property manager or having in house property management, even, you got to manage the property. You're not going to operate at 25, 30% expenses. More realistically, 40 to 50%. Even at a good B class, maybe high 30s or low 40s. Maybe. Okay. You got to be careful. So if a broker is touting, oh, an 8% cap rate for this, you're not going to buy it. It's 8% cap rate. Tell the guy, hey, pound sand, you buy it for an 8% cap rate that you're projecting 25% expense ratio on. It's a joke. It pisses me off to no end. And I'm sorry. I'm getting very upset with it. Here's another thing that brokers don't talk about. They don't talk about the CapEx needed. They don't talk about the CapEx tsunami that's waiting to occur. They don't talk about the repairs and maintenance that you're going to have to take over, and that comes out of your operating income. Okay. If you don't have a brand new product, a brand new asset, then you're going to have deferred maintenance. I don't care what the property is. So you never want to walk into a property with a zero CapEx budget. I always, guys, do your own thing, okay? But I always underwrite for a minimum of $8,000 per unit. Why? Well, look, even if everything is fully upgraded and fully functional and ready to go, let's say it's a turnkey property. At some point, you're going to have to pump in money. If you're holding this for more than a few years, you're going to have to pump in some money to replace things and fix things. And you know what? Your operating income is rarely enough to start saving up for that. You know, we do a replacement reserves of $250, maybe $300 a unit a year. That's not enough. That's not going to get you a renovation when you're looking to refinance or sell the property. It's just not. Let's do some quick math. $250 per unit per year. All right, 5 years down the road. So now you're at what? $1,250 to do renovations to get a property up to speed to sell? Hell no, that's not going to work. You have to have a CapEx budget. I don't care if you're going into a turnkey property. You got to walk in with a minimum of 8 to 10,000 per unit. You're going to run into issues. What if the AC fails? You know, what if the life expectancy for an AC is 10 years and it's 8 years old and you know you only got a couple years left? You're going to have to replace it. It's $5,000 to replace. So yes, you could have reserves and replacements, which you should. 250 a unit a year, maybe 300 a unit a year. Yes. You also could set aside some money for future CapEx issues. Yes. You're not going to be able to save enough for CapEx issues. So, my point is this: when you're looking at a property and you're valuing the property, you got to have a CapEx budget. And that goes into the total cost. So, when a broker says, hey, this is $1 million property, that's an 8% cap rate. Well, what about closing costs? What about reserves that you need to raise and bring to the table? And what about your CapEx budget? Now, the all in cost is more like 1.5 million on a situation like this, perhaps maybe 1.3. I don't know. We're just throwing out numbers, but the all-in cost is 1.3 million. So that cap rate that they're saying, oh, you're buying on a cap rate. No, because they're not including a number of things. First of all, they're lying about the expense ratio. All right, 25, 35% expense ratio. Nonsense. They're lying about the total cost because you have closing costs anywhere from 2.5 to 3.5 or even 4% of the purchase price. You need to have reserves in the bank and you need to have a CapEx budget. So $1 million property is actually 1.2 to 1.4 or 1.5 million, depending on the amount of work that you need to put into it. So just chill out, brokers. When you press somebody and say, hey, what cap rate are you looking to buy at? And then you're going to argue like, oh, I want to buy at a 6 cap, which I typically try to buy at. But a 6 cap under my underwriting is very different than a 6 cap under a broker's underwriting. Because right now they're pushing out deals at 7.5%. Oh, this is a 7% cap rate. Yeah, but like I said, 25% expense ratio, nonsense. I'm at 50% year one or 60% year one, maybe even a bit more. Okay. Expense ratios. That's how deals go. That's how they operate. Number one. So you better chill. And then also, what about reserves? What about closing costs? What about your CapEx budget? You have to have that or the property fails. So brokers, yes, they got to do their job. They got to promote the property. They got to sell it. I get it, but they're not looking out for you and how you're going to operate. You can't go into a deal with zero or negative cash flow. You cannot do it, especially in today's market. You got to be careful. So, like when we're looking at CapEx, you're not just buying a cash flow number. You're buying roofs, you're buying HVAC systems, you're buying plumbing, electrical nightmares. I've seen it all. And guess what? They're all aging. No matter what, if you buy a brand new product today and you're planning on holding it for 5 to 7 years, 5 to 7 years from that brand new product, you're going to have to replace things. It's just what it is. The CapEx tsunami is happening, especially for 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s product. CapEx tsunami. If people have not been taking care of their property, you're going to walk into a nightmare. You're going to get smashed with a wave of capital expenditures if you don't account for it now. That nice fake 7% cap rate now turns into negative cash flow real quick when you have to shell out $60,000 in year two to replace a roof and 3 HVACs. It's just the way it goes, guys. So, yeah, we do our inspections and we kind of try to estimate when things are going to fail, when the major systems are going to fail, what needs to be replaced. And then we go back to the seller and we renegotiate if we have to, etc. But just like I said, a brand new property today is 5 years old 5 years from now, meaning you might have to replace HVACs. You might have leaks. You might have issues with the water heaters. You might have issues with electric. You might have issues with plumbing. You got to know that this is going to happen. And if not, you're passing it on to the next buyer 5 to 7 years from now. And that person might try to renegotiate based on the fact that now your property is 5 to 7 years older. So the point is this: you have to budget for CapEx items. So what actually matters? When a broker throws out a cap rate, you need to fire back. Are those expenses actuals or broker massaged, as you might say? What's the true expense ratio? Not your pro forma fantasy, my guy or my girl. How old are the roofs, the HVACs, the plumbing, the electrical? How much work has been done to the interior? Guys, I was just talking to a broker and he's like, the property has been completely renovated. That statement sounds awesome. But then I looked a little deeper. Number one, he just said completely renovated. He didn't say anything about any major systems being replaced. So, what are the renovations? Number two, he said 2018. Guys, 7 years ago. And if you know anything about renters, you're going to have to paint, you're going to have to replace cabinets, potentially, at least paint or fix up cabinets, maybe even countertops, depending on what they have in there, maybe bathrooms, maybe tiles. So, 2018 is not a new renovation, guys. You got to renovate every few years. So, sorry, dude. Are there real reserves baked into those numbers, bro? What's the area's historical vacancy and bad debt? Because you know what? Brokers are always kind of promoting the property on 95 to 100% occupancy. Never the case. Sorry. You can't be 100% occupied all the time, especially if you're pushing rents. There's a trade off. If your property is undervalued with rents, let's say the rents are supposed to be 1,200 and they're at 1,000. It's definitely possible. And I believe it because I've seen it and I've dealt with it. But you can't get the $200 rent bump in 1 year. You have to burn off that loss to lease. It takes 3 years to do so. And even then, you're always going to be a little bit slightly below market. When a broker says market rent is 1,200 and they're currently renting at 1,000, yes, you can get that 1,200 on every new lease, but every new lease doesn't happen day one, right? People sign 12-month leases. And then upon renewal, let's say they don't want that rent bump, they're going to move out. And now you have 2 weeks to 2 months of vacancy, and you have to renovate at the very minimum, clean and paint, which is going to be a couple $1,000s. You got to know this stuff, guys. And if they answer, oh, this is 95% occupied location. Well, no shit, because that location at $1,000, yeah, you might be 100% occupied this month. Then you go into the historicals and you figure out that it was really only 90% occupied for the year still. But regardless of that, yes, you might be able to get 100% occupancy at very low market rents, or rather below market rents. And that's key to know as well. So if they answer really quickly when you're like, what's historical vacancy and bad debt? And if they answer really quickly, maybe they're just fudging it and faking it. So just be careful. Real underwriting, survival. Guys, I don't underwrite off a broker's OM. I use it as guidance for sure. And especially if I'm doing quick underwriting, yeah, I'll take those numbers for sure. But we need to get real insurance quotes. And my insurance is typically a little bit more, because I know a lot about insurance now in Florida, typically a little bit more than what the broker is going to claim. However, sometimes they do have actual quotes, but not always. And that's good too. Make sure that they have actual quotes and get those quotes from them. You got to underwrite for the actual property tax projections. You have to nail this. Insurance and property taxes are the biggest mistakes that people make. You got to nail those two numbers. Very easy to do if you call the county for the taxes, and then you got to have a good insurance guy or gal. Real market rent comps. A lot of times the brokers can get pretty decent with rent comps, but that doesn't mean you're going to get it day one, like I said before. Remember, there's a loss to lease burn off period, which could take 3 years. And there's always going to be some form of loss to lease, because that first rent bump that you did 3 years ago is now below market rent again. And even though you're increasing it a few percentage points year over year, you're always going to be slightly under market rent. And that's okay. That's standard. You got to get real maintenance budgets. So yeah, CoStar is saying $550 a unit a year for maintenance. It's nonsense. It's not the truth. What goes into your maintenance costs? Mine are more like $1,000 a unit a year or more for maintenance. And honestly, guys, you got to budget for more than that. And it's going to crush you. It's going to kill you. It's killing cash flow right now. And it's just the way it is. You got to make sure that you're underwriting for the proper amount of repairs and maintenance. This is probably the biggest mistake that we made on our 44 unit. We underwrote for 800 a unit a year. It's more like 1,400 a unit a year, because we're hitting that CapEx tsunami that I was talking about for these 1970 properties. Don't think that you're going to slide by and get away with it. Expenses don't go down. Expenses go up. You have to believe it. Don't think that you're going to come in there and Robin Hood this property and take it from $1,000 in maintenance costs a unit a year to 500. It's not happening. If it's $1,000 a unit a year, you got to budget for more than that. I got to be honest with you. And if the numbers don't survive your underwriting, guys, just pass on the deal. There's more deals to be had, and eventually you will get one. You got to underwrite and bid on as many deals as possible, a minimum of 100 to land one deal. So just keep going, keep swinging your axe. You're going to get it at some point. Here's the mindset shift, peeps. You're not buying a cap rate. You're buying an operation. You're buying a living, breathing, expensive machine that needs fuel, parts, and repairs. Cash flow plus equity growth equals wealth. Cap rates, they're just noise until you build your own model. If you take one thing away from today, it's that cap rates don't protect you. Good underwriting does. It's simple math, guys. Make sure that your deal is cash flowing based on your underwriting. Stop shopping for cap rates. Start shopping for cash flow and durability. Now, back to my point in the beginning of this podcast where I was like, well, I bought a property on a 3% cap rate, or I didn't even know what the heck the cap rate was. I never even look, guys. It's stupid, to be honest with you, in my opinion. I mean, I get it. It has its value to understand the cap rate, but if it's so subjective and people are putting in different expenses, then you're buying off of a fake subjective number. All right. So it's good to know. I get it. So, like, let's say I bought my property, the 16 unit Idlewild. We bought it at a 3.5%, something like that cap rate, because the rents were so low. But we were able to, within 6 months, renovate everything completely and get the projected rents that we were looking for. It took us 6 months, but we got it. So are we really valuing the property for 3% cap rate? No, because I was able to accomplish the business plan to make it more of a 6% cap rate or so, whatever it is. Now, I don't even know. So again, cap rates suck. They're stupid. I don't like them. I don't buy into this crap. You could also buy a property that has very little income, that is a killer property, just poorly managed, right? Nobody's there. Maybe it's 50% occupied and they're only showing $50,000 in income, and you're buying it on a 1% cap rate. Okay. And all you got to do is fill the units and they're fully renovated and everything's great. That is a good deal. So don't just look at a cap rate. The point is this, guys, cap rates are there, yeah, as guidance. Don't take them for the end all be all. You got to look into the weeds. You got to do your own underwriting. You got to understand your own business plan, etc. So, guys, I need to ask something of you. If you're listening right now, I need you to stop. I need you to go to the podcast page on Apple, and I need you to rate and review this podcast. I barely have any ratings and reviews. Please, it would do me a huge favor. Rate and review this podcast on Apple Podcasts. You need to do it on your iPhone. Stay sharp, stay dangerous, get your axe out, sharpen that thing, and go chop down some buildings. All right, and that's a wrap, Small Axe community. So I wanted to take a minute to say thank you so much for listening to the show. And if you liked it or got any value from it, it would really mean the world to me if you would share it with someone else and write a review. Remember, guys, keep sharpening those axes. Let's get out there. Let's crush it. Love you guys.